This edition of Mike On Podcast with Shayon Okimbaloi. Mike On Podcast for the independent mind. Thank you for joining. In this edition of the Mike On Podcast.
The clock is ticking and the nation is waiting. Election day is fast approaching. The youths who make the most percentage of the voting population are engaging more than before. The question that must be thoroughly examined is whether or not the youths are prepared to make a real impact in influencing the outcome of elections, or they are just throwing tantrums at one another without being true influencers of the election process, and concerns about the growing cancelling culture. What should be the positive impact approach of the youth towards the elections? Let us hear from the guests as Shayon Okimbaloi hosts this conversation on the Micon podcast.
The 60% of Us series.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Micon podcast, the 60% of our series. The essence of this podcast is to further create an avenue where young Nigerians get to air their undiluted views as the election approaches. Well, if you can see, Micon podcast for the independent minds, that's the essence of this podcast. And as you may have noticed, this show as an additional effort to my weekdays and Sunday engagement on Channels Television, where I sit with policymakers and politicians. And on this platform, more young Nigerians have the opportunity to discuss more youth-centric topics. And the main aim is to raise political participation among the young people of Nigeria. Political activities are gathering pace, and the politics may seem heated at this point, but amidst all these campaigns and politicking, one must ask the crucial question: are the youths of this country really ready to play big in these elections? Will their roles and impacts be felt beyond the banter and the cancel culture mostly seen on social media? Will they really truly participate in this crucial democratic process? So there are many questions to be answered, and I have a set of vibrant young Nigerians, some of the best that you can find around tonight, who will be joining me. Of course, you can join the conversation using the hashtag Micon podcast. It's the 60% of Us series, which means that we are recognizing the fact that the young people make the most of the demography in our voting population as we go into the election. From over 83 million voters in 2019, we have well over 90 million voters now that are registered. We still yet to know just how many of that figure will be able to vote really, because without PVC, you cannot vote. So how many of those people of over 90 million have their PVC, because that is going to give us the exact amount of people to vote. Now, you must have seen and heard people bantering and making argument. I'm perhaps a bit more excited this time around because we see more young people getting engaged. Now, The question we are going to be dealing with tonight is that engagement that you are saying. Are young people going to take that engagement into action on election day? Because youth are being criticized of sitting back at home watching Nollywood movies. There's nothing wrong with watching Nollywood movies or Hollywood movies. It's a good way to relax. That is if you don't have any other thing that is very important to do. So it's crucial for the young people of this country to take their destinies into their hand and know that whatever actions or decision they make this time around will affect their future. I'm not going to be doing the talking. I have speakers on these podcasts today that will be dealing with the issues. Have you noticed that there seems to be some counseling? The counseling culture is increasing by the day. If you support someone, people will come after you. You support this politician or candidate, people will come after you. Is there independence and the freedom to support whoever you want to support? Because that's the essence of democracy in any case. So this evening on the podcast, I have joining us virtually Tolu Ogunlesi, who is an aide to the president. And whether or not Tolu also fall within the margin of the youth of this country, well, that's a big question though, isn't it? Tolu, thank you so much.
Big question.
Thank you so much, Tolu, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I have also Indy Kato, who is one of the spokespersons of the Labour Party. Is an Obidati supporter. Thank you so much, Indy, for joining us. Can you hear me? You can unmute. I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Fabulous. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah. So, and I have with me a rights activist and a lawyer, Cynthia Imbamalu. Thank you so much, Cynthia. It's good to see you.
Hi, it's good to see you too.
All right. Just before, in the course of the program, I know Mr. Jollof, who is an Atiku supporter, will be joining us in a short while. But let's begin. Tolu, you are the not so young one. But do you see the young people of Nigeria this time around getting more serious than the last time, than 2019? Do you think they are more serious now? And and that my question is premised on seriousness about this election is going out on election day to vote. So how would you gauge their seriousness ahead of the 25th, which is just 13 days away anyways?
Well, there is. I think the first thing to say actually is that, how do we define political participation? It's not only about voting. It's not only about what happens on that day, where people go with their PVCs to vote. Politics and political participation is also about, things like, mobilizing, campaigning, and young people are doing a lot of work, in all the parties. In fact, I think it's fair to say that the bulk of the mobilizing that you find being done by any of the parties, is by young people, making T-shirts, going out to markets with flyers and all that. The older people, will, of course, when it comes to the most visible things like the campaign rallies, where you have thousands of people and then people speaking to them on a stage. Of course, the older the veteran politicians are the ones that you will find on those stages. But a lot of the work that is actually done is by young people, So, and this is actually not new. I always like to think back to 2011 when we had the another third party tickets that also captured the imagination of a lot of young people, where we had ACN at the time, that was the Fola Adiola and the Nuhu Ribadu and Fola Adiola ticket, and of course, social media then was not what it is now. So what we are seeing now, I think, is just a continuation of something that has always been. Young people have always been involved in politics in Nigeria. There's nothing new. What is happening, I guess what is changing is that social media is now allowing more and more young people to bypass the existing, what you might call obstacles to political involvement. But it's not so. So my point is that it's not a new thing. It's just an expansion of something that has always happened. And social media, of course, is the mediating force or influence that is allowing people to come out. And of course, in terms of voting, it looks like this year we're going to see, even bigger numbers of young people voting than ever before. But again, it's a pattern that has been intensifying for quite a long time.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So, do you feel the same way, Indy, about the young people? Because I mean, like we were saying, the kind of readiness that we are talking about, is it the kind of readiness that that we amount to the vote? Because young people really have been very active, but they have sometimes in 2007, 2003, 2011, we know that young people are the one who do the actual job. But what kind of readiness do you think that the young people are engaging in right now?
I think in terms of organizing towards I think in terms of organizing towards the elections, young people are at the top of the ladder in campaigning in this present election cycle. One thing I would say is I keep encouraging young people, because most young people do not understand that they are politicking right now. They don't understand that they are actively members of the political cycle and that they are making things happen. They don't understand the scale of what they are doing. So I keep encouraging that beyond this, please try and register in a political party. Because that's the next step for young people. I think every election cycle, every election season, we see a growth in youth participation. Every election season, young people take over the space, but this has been the most I have seen so far. In terms of voter registration, we saw young people organizing around voter registration to come out, get your PVC, go and collect your PVC, all of that. All of these were championed by young people. I think the way in which young people are able to campaign, the older generation do not understand it. We bring a certain, level of intelligence, and that's not to say that the older generation is not intelligent, but we bring something to campaigns that they do not understand. Left to the older generation, it will.
Are you speaking specifically to the Labour Party? Because I know you are part of it, and perhaps you will probably be one of the youngest spokesperson I've seen in a long time. I'm not sure I've seen anybody this young in any campaign council.
I am the youngest.
Yeah. So when you're speaking in this manner, you're referring to what is going on within the Labour Party, isn't it?
Yes, what is going on within the Labour Party, but also, look, a lot of what is happening and a lot of how these other parties are sustaining themselves is through young people, to be honest, because if you look at the actions of the principals in those parties, those actions are not able to or enough to keep somebody, through an election cycle, let's be very honest. So even all of this, all the other political parties, the older political parties, are literally standing on the backs, on the necks of young people right now to be able to sustain their campaigns. You can't say that these few appearances that they have been able to make is what is making Nigerians or keeping their names in the lips of Nigerians. It's the young campaign, it's youths, spending their time actively fighting. Even candidates that we consider not the favorite right now, or candidates that people are antagonizing, it's young people sticking their necks out and deciding that throughout my time on social media, I'm going to keep fighting for this person, I'm going to keep defending this person, I'm going to keep making points across for this person. So I think that it is still across these spaces. Now, the level of participation in these other spaces for young people have been greatly limited. Young people have been limited to certain spaces, and it's very difficult for them to break barriers in other spaces. That's not to say, because they someone might argue that yes, one or two persons are in the older spaces with in some of these are allowed into the room with some of the older people, but that's not enough. So with the rest of these older parties, despite what young people are doing, they are basically kept in a certain space and not allowed to transcend where they have been relegated to. So I would say that from Labour Party's angle, the advantage would be that young people are able to participate in the same spaces on a large scale as the older people. But these other parties, still young people, despite being kept out of the important rooms where decisions are being made, a lot of young people are the ones driving these campaigns. Without young people driving these campaigns, I don't think that the campaigns will be where they are right now. This election has been greatly decided by young people on several levels. Number one, deciding what conversations matter, deciding what conversations the country is going to be having with respect to these elections. We dictate all of that. What is most important, pushing for PVCs, what is important in our lives, all of that. We have dictated all of that. And the next step is the fact that, and I think Cynthia can corroborate with this, that young people are the highest amount of voters in this election cycle, and this election is going to greatly be decided by young people. We are phasing out another generation, and this is our election. So beyond this point, I think this is the election where by the next election we realize how powerful we are. By the time our next data comes out on votes, we realize how powerful we are, and we take the bull by the horn and run for most of these offices.
So I'm actually very I'm looking for facts and figures to support how much of the PVCs young people have collected beyond being in the larger population, because PVC is actually what makes you qualified to vote. Mr. Jolov has since joined us. Good to see you, bro.
Good evening, show.
He's an article supporter.
Yes.
Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
Cynthia, do you hold the same view? Because I know you and your organization, you've done a lot of work, and kudos to you for the support you give to this kind of conversation. 60% of us, they're not too young to run. A whole lot of effort that your organization has made. But are you impressed so far? Let me start from there. Are you impressed with what we've seen so far when it comes to young people? Because I'm going somewhere before we get into the conversation that gets heated. Let's lay a background. Are you impressed?
I think first, I don't want you to tell me impressed. It's nice to see this level of political activism amongst younger people, especially if you see the kinds of conversation that we've had on social media platforms. If you remember the registration period, CVR period, where you had young people going to mobilize their peers or even trying to get registered to vote. So for me, that is interesting, it's exciting. And yes, we do know that if young people do come out, the idea of 60% of us is, imagine if 60% of youth turn out to vote. What that would mean basically is that young people will determine the outcome of the elections. And so for me, it's not necessarily about the level of active participation or engagement at this point. What matters at the end is the final result. If young people did translate or transfer this political strength or this numerical strength into the political power it needs to over and to influence the outcome. And why do I say this? In 2019, we had young people, persons between 18 to 35, where based on the INEC data, considered about 51.1% of registered voters. However, post the elections, youth participation or youth turnout for the presidential election was at 28%. So you can imagine that out of that, we had 51.1% youth registered in 2019, but only 28% youth turned out to vote in 2019. And we had a lot of young people who seemed very interested pre the elections period, but we could not translate that. In fact, Lagos was really sad because Lagos had over 40% youth registration, but youth turnout was about 4.8%. 4.8% for presidential elections in Lagos. So you can also imagine that sometimes you have the large number, you have high participation, but at the end, what matters truly is those who go out and to vote. And you made an important point around the PVC. Yes, the PVC will determine a lot of things, and we would wait for INEC to release the final data. Although I worry that INEC may not be able to disaggregate or based on age and all of that once data is out. But let us do some level of trend analysis when it comes to youth political participation. And I'm a huge fan of promoting inclusion, especially for youth participation, because I believe that the country is a young nation. Nigeria is a young country. It's made up of vibrant, active, intelligent young people, and young people actually do have the power to influence the outcome of an election. However, I feel like over a long period of time, we've had a major challenge of one, understanding how to transform this number into the power that we need to influence the outcome, and secondly is around organizing properly around the issues that matter to us. I think there are different ways, there are gaps within that. And and I'm glad we'll be talking so much later around things around the cancel culture, because when it comes to politics, the idea of competitive elections is that we're having debates around issues and we're letting those issues influence how people vote. However, one of the things we're beginning to see is that if you think around 2015, in 2015 it was as if young people were going to influence the total outcome and everything was going to be dependent on youth, because youth registration was also high. However, in that particular election, it was just about conversations around what was the majority or how do we vote as a people. So at the end of it, what we had was basically pre-elections, a lot of young people engaging, but on elections day, turnout was youth turnout wasn't was low, but post elections youth participation also dwindled. So it's almost like this is almost a trend. So that's what I'm saying.
It shows
that pre-election
that they are watching movies and playing football.
No, but it does, because that's what data shows us. So why I'm happy to see this conversation. Yesterday we were having a question in the office, and the question was, I wish this energy I'm seeing on Twitter, on Facebook, and all the other places I go to. We have several forward conventions are happening. That this kind of activism and this kind of energy, that it really does translate to vote on elections day. Because at the end of it all, voting is a civic responsibility, but it also comes with some level of sacrifice. And we know that the voting process is not as easy as we'd want it to be, because there's some stress that comes with that, be it standing in the queue for a long while, or waiting for things to work, or dealing with the heat of the sun. But what we are beginning to see is at the end of the day, the young people or the youth number that should influence the outcome is not what finally influences the outcome. You have the other generation who still turn out to vote. And for these elections, actually, youth registration is barely 40%, so 39.6% youth registration. However, even at that number, it's still about 37 million of the 93 point something million registered voter. So even at 40% youth registration, if out of this 40%, about 80% collect their permanent voters card, or have collected their permanent voters card, because that process is over, and out of that 80% of the 40 that got their PVC, they come out to vote. Honestly, youth would influence the elections and can swing it anyway. And for me, that is what I'm looking forward to. I love the engagement, the conversation, everywhere I go, I see people say I will vote. I love that spirit, but I'm a bit cautiously optimistic, just because of experience. And
so you don't get disappointed on election.
I don't want to I don't want to go and make noise and say young people will come out to vote, and on elections day, when we see data, we'll just see 28% turnout, because that happened to me in 2019. I was on Channels TV. I can't remember if you remember one of the shows, and I was saying youth registration was at 51.1%, and I'm like, young people will change the outcome of these elections, And then on elections they were observing, and you will see older people, and the middle age were those that you had most on the queue, and I'm like, where are the youth? So what happened to us?
Let's be frank with ourselves. Young people on election day have been very unserious. The facts, the figures says as much. Young people are not serious about the election. They mouth it, they talk about it, but they've not been serious. I know Mr. Macaroni has joined us. Thank you so much for joining us, Debo. Thank you indeed. I appreciate it.
Doing well.
Is it that you don't have new currency or fuel? Which one?
The new currency is really dealing with me. Because everywhere I go, you know how it is now, especially on set and all those things. You finish shooting like this, macaroni, hey, macaroni,
You want to give your people something.
So I always want to give my people something. I'll try and I'll do it. But like this, in fact, I was so happy because I'm at an event right now, So we went for the rehearsal in the morning. By themselves, they were saying, "Ma worry, macaroni, I'm on cashless flour. Ma worry, I did this stuff."
So you are becoming a bad man with your supporters now. Yeah, let me.
Oh yes.
let me get Mr. Jolof's view on this. What I mean, those people have spoken tonight on this show tonight have said as much about young people. But do you see young people coming out in this election?
Yes, I see young people coming out in this election to perform their civic responsibility. However, I don't see them pulling that difference that they are supposed to do. A lot of them that collected their PVCs could perform their civil responsibility. And some that have collected their PVC, they are not in the country anymore. They've jackpot. So,
and the population of those that jackpot
is much, So I agree with what she was saying earlier on, that we had 51% the last election, and at the end of the day, she was disappointed. And these have happened over time, where the youth don't get it right. You know, we start a struggle and it doesn't end well. And this is what I've been saying all along. Thank God we have a third force, you know, and the third force is doing well according to what MC Bakarodi will say. You are doing well, but not the right way.
What do you mean?
Not the right way. You know, we've done our analysis. We have 6 geopolitical zones. You know, we have 774 local government, and we have about 176,846 polling units. You know, are the youth organized to actually pull this off, state by state, polling unit by polling unit, word by word? These are the issues. I have a breakdown of the 6 geopolitical zones. Northwest, do you see them making a difference there?
You are referring to the Labour Party, or which party are you referring to?
No, I'm just saying in general, as I am right now, and with the ideology we have at this point, we don't talk about any other candidate but to sell our candidate. Yes,
but you change your mind at some point.
Of course.
You were with Tinubu.
Yes.
You now switch to Atiku.
Yes.
You articulated. What happened?
Yes, because to be very honest, I see Atiku including the youth more in his administration. He has already said that 30% of his cabinet will be the youth. He has already said that. And I have a close tie with his vice presidential candidate, Governor Kowa. And over time, I'm from Delta State, there are issues, pressing issues, I always point out. And the executive governor, from my own little end, attend to it. So that shows that sometimes my messages are not properly sent out. They are not constructive enough. But it doesn't look at the messenger. It looks at the message. And that's what makes you a leader. When you know that, what is the problem? You know how we live in Nigeria. You don't say any foul language to your elders. They will come at you. But Okowa has performed that gentleman character to listen to me. And when we had a one-on-one discussion before I switched over, he asked me, like, I heard you are supporting Asiwaju. I said, you didn't include me. I don't know you if you want to be a vice president. You know? And he said, this is what we have. I have over 1,000 issues that I'm attending to. But now you know, this is what we want to do. My work is your work.
So you see Okowa trying to draw people, or Atiku trying to draw people closer to the younger people. That's your reason for switching over.
Of course.
You didn't see this in Tinubu?
I don't see that in that camp at all.
On that side.
Yes. No, what they want to do, is this. They just want to get you and keep you.
Who is that?
The other side. The other side. If you are strong, they get you and keep you there. You are not effective, but you are with them. That is not what we want as youth. You know? And there are so many things that we've seen that it doesn't favor us at the end of the day. But on this side, we have 18 political parties, but the 2 major political parties, PDP and APC. To be very honest, you know, when people talk about structure, they think structure is all about money or, you know, in quotes, having talks. Structure is way more than that. Let me give you an example. Probably you have a child, a 15-year-old child, looking for admission into the university. And one of these, because these are our politicians, we think that they are not smart. They are smarter than us when it comes to politics. You see this politician give this child a scholarship to school, and in the next 4 years, that child is already an adult to cast his or her vote. And that child might in some way need another help to further his education, and this person comes through all the time. Are you telling me that if that person wants to contest, that person will go elsewhere? It's not possible. They have that structure. They've raised families. They've given people life. So if you meet the common man and he asks the common man, vote another person, go ask you say, who be boy, in quote.
So that's what.
Who we don't help.
So
that is the structure. That is the structure.
You don't see that in any other party.
They don't have it.
But the Labour Party says they're already building that. In fact, that is the kind of
there's no. You don't have that time to build that structure. It takes time. I just gave you an example. Raising a child to school in 4 years. By then, who you are helping as the parent, you already have another child in school. Makes that 2. And if I'm helping a family of 4, makes it 5. If we have a rebel, it's just 1.
So you think the Labour Party is not on the ground?
They are not on the ground. They are not on the ground.
But
they will do well.
Can they spring surprise from this election by winning it?
Win this coming election? They won't win it now.
Really?
They won't. I'm confident about that. I don't want to. According like what she said, she doesn't want to be heartbroken. You know, there's so much effort, but they are not doing it right. We have a lot of youth participating now. Fine. But the question is, are you getting it right? Getting it right is what we're after. A lot of us, we are just in an environment that, we are just in a bad environment that make people see us like bad person.
All right. Let me bring Mr. Macaroni to the conversation. And part of what we are discussing is also the cancel culture. Mr. Macaroni, give us your view about, I know you lend your voice in the NSAS protest. We saw how young people stood up. There must be something that gingered you, if I may use that word. There must be something that propelled you. You're an actor, you are a skit maker, you're a comedian, you are a thespian. But the kind of change that the average Nigerian person want to see, can we achieve it in this election?
First thing I would say is that freedom doesn't come on a platter of gold. It comes by struggle. So if there are a people in bondage, you will fight for the freedom. It's not going to be handed over to you. And it's okay for naysayers to have doubts about such freedom, because they do not see that even that movement is bigger than whoever started it, whoever joins, or whoever leaves. The most powerful movement of any form is the movement of the people. So once the people say this is what they want, the will of the people must prevail, shall prevail. So the question of, is there time? Are they getting it right? At the end of the day, it will be a struggle between the status quo and people that are looking to change that status quo. And if the people that are suffering, if the people that are tired of the slavery and bondage that they are in are more than those that want the status quo to remain, there's going to be a change. Someone like me, I've always said, I've never hidden it. This is my first time. This is the first time I'm going to be casting a vote in Nigeria. And I swear, there is nobody on the surface of this earth that will say I should not cast that vote. Because I am angry. I am upset. And it is this anger that a lot of Nigerian youths have, this same anger. And that's why they're saying, yes, it's okay to talk about 2015 and all those years when we thought that youth will come out and they did not come out. I cannot speak on behalf of every Nigerian youth. I can speak for myself. I will come out to vote because I am upset, because I have witnessed firsthand the incompetence, the wickedness of government, how they have allowed their own youth to die, left them uncatered for. That is something I can neither forget nor forgive. So, I am letting you know that a lot of other youths might be gingered the same way I am gingered. I cannot ascertain that they are. But with what we've seen, with the moves that we have seen, with the sacrifices that are being made, I can see from my own point of view that they are gingered. And that anger is going to translate into votes. Will it make a particular candidate win? I don't know. But Nigerian youths will come out to vote.
But from what you see, Debo, and I like to, I'm curious though, why it has become so. I see people throw tantrums. I see people get at each other online. Why has it been these hurtful, very dangerous words people use against each other? If you know that you are following or supporting, as soon as you say you are supporting a candidate, they will come at you. You are in trouble. I'm trying to read some messages. One of Nigeria's actresses is saying that I think some people are threatening her to leave Lagos, and she was responding to them. I mean, why this cancel culture? You are, I mean, I don't know what it took you to come forward to tell the world who you were going to vote for and the kind of response that came. And I know that you also, because you're a public figure too, you probably received the same thing.
Of course.
Tolu is a Buharist. He works with President Buhari, and I know that you get a lot of attacks. So why is this cancel culture growing? And I see it more amongst youth. Why?
It is not now. I'm not going to defend any action that I consider to be irresponsible, actions that I consider to trample upon the rights of fellow citizens. There's no justification for it. There never will be. But I spoke about anger of Nigerian youth. I also want to make something categorically clear, that there is a certain idea or agenda that is being pushed that only a particular party or only supporters of a particular candidate abuse or insult or attack others for their choices. That's a big lie. All supporters of various parties insult, attack one another. That's what I want everyone to take out from this. Because just this morning, I rolled out a thread. If you count, it's uncountable. And those are just the ones, I just wanted people to see that, look, if you come out and say, people are insulting me because of my choice, the moment I came out to say, this is who I am going to vote for, oh my goodness. In fact, I spoke to one of my trolls today for the first time in my life. This guy put on Twitter, just some moments ago, this guy put on Twitter and said, Mr. Macaroni, you collected 7 million naira from so person. He was saying the same thing one other person that I'm about to take to court said. I don't have any problem with you insulting me or abusing me. They've been doing that for so long. But I have a problem with defamation. Don't accuse me of doing some certain things because people know that I would not do it. So this guy was simply repeating what that person said. He now added that God will punish you, thunder will fire you, you will die and you will run mad. Vile things. I now followed him. I followed him on Twitter. He followed me back. I now sent him, I matched what he wrote. I now sent it to him. I said, why this? Is it more than we as Nigerians saying this is our own choice? Is it more than all of us coming together? We don't have to agree on the same candidate or the same party, but we all are certainly looking for how Nigeria can move forward. Maybe some people are doing this for their own selfish reasons. I don't know. But as for me, it's just for Nigeria to move forward. So is it more than Mr. Macaroni saying, I want Nigeria to be better, and in my own view, this is who I think is best for the job? Is it more than that you are saying all these things? Can I have your number? I want to call you. He sent his number. I called him. Why? This guy, crisp English, we were having a very intelligent conversation. I said, why? He said, oh, Mr. Macaroni, I'm so sorry. I'm just so frustrated. I'm an intern with a very popular, this thing I will not mention. He has not gotten a job. He's just interning, and he said he's struggling, he's looking for. I said, okay, you're frustrated. But you cannot say because you're frustrated, take out all of this. Look at what you have said. You are wishing me death. You said I should die because of my own personal choice. And it just went on and on. My plan was to get him to send me maybe his account details, his number, maybe his name, then I'll get address. Me, because of that letter from you, lawyer will collect they should send it to him. But when he started to talk, I just felt pity for him. That, look, this is what we are saying. So I just want to correct that impression that across all parties, there are people doing that. And I want to say it is not right, but I just think it is the level of frustration, the level of anger that the Nigerian youths have. In fact, not just the youth, everyone. Look at what people are going through. No money, no fuel, no job, no light, insecurity, piled up frustration, because the frustration didn't just start now. MSAS, everything that has happened, police brutality, it's just piled up frustration, and people are taking it the wrong way. It's wrong, it's sad, but these are reasons for it.
Yeah, but so you said that you're going to vote for Peter Obi. You still maintain your stance?
Absolutely, yes. Without any apologies.
You think that Peter Obi is the candidate of the youth?
Well, I would not be able to answer, like I said, and I keep saying, I would not be able to answer for the youth. But for me, out of all of the candidates that I have seen, he is the one that I feel I don't see him as a messiah. I don't even see him as someone that will come and he has all the solutions to the problems of the country. But as per my own definition of leadership, which is service first, selflessness, sacrifice, through discipline, integrity, and accountability to the people that you have sworn to serve, Peter Obi is the most qualified for me.
Better than Tinubu, Atiku, Kwankwaso, and the rest.
Peter Obi fits my definition of leadership. Respect to every other candidate, respect to every other person that wants to vote for them for reasons that they know. As for me, what I understand leadership to me, by virtue of character and by virtue of attributes of good leadership, Peter Obi best defines it. And he's the one I'll cast my vote for.
Okay. Let me go to Tolu. Tolu,
yes.
You heard some of the things that Debo said, Mr. Macaroni, about the situation of the country. And if you go about, with the population of the young people in this election, are you afraid that or concerned that people might met this out on your, I don't know if you're a member of the APC, but the virtue of your, you're a member of APC. So by the virtue of your relationship with President Buhari, is there any explanation for Nigerian youth, this money, these fuel queues, this situation that Debo has described today? Do you think that your party, is in danger of getting vote against it in this election?
Well, I think the first thing to say is that, I'm not here, in the capacity of a spokesperson, for, say, the party, for example. But, what we know and what is not rocket science in any way is that, an incumbent party going into any election will always sort of have to bear, a lot of the brunt for the circumstances or the conditions that exist. But at the same time, I find it quite puzzling or troubling, this idea that maybe there's a block youth vote, that there's a block vote of youth, that all youths must vote in the same way or will vote in the same way, and a lot of the conversations about youth votes, even the premise of this conversation we're having, oh, the youth vote, you hear a lot of the youth vote. There's nothing like the youth vote, as far as I'm concerned, in the sense that there's nothing like a block vote of young people who will all vote the same way. You have the APC campaign is powered by young people, and the same applies to all the other parties, and I mean, in my own little understanding of politics, people weigh sort of like the options, politics is never about the ideal. That's one thing that I have learned. Politics is not about the ideal. At the end of the day, we have candidates before us, there's often that metaphor analogy of, like, when you go into a restaurant to eat and you are given a menu. You're picking from the menu. You are not saying, look, I don't want anything on the menu, go and make me this. I mean, there's an ideal. There's always the ideal in anywhere in the world. There's always the ideal, that ideal combination of qualities that a perfect candidate would have. But there's no candidate that is perfect. All candidates come, as human beings with their imperfections, and they come and they offer and they say, look, this is what I have done in the past. This is what I plan to do when I get into office. So, and on the basis of that, then people then make decisions, people make choices. And people don't have to be happy, 100% happy with the status quo. The fact that, look, we were here in 2019. I know how many people came on social media to tell me that, in 2019, you are packing your bags, you are going back to Dara, you are going back to this, you are going back to that. It is the way politics, it is politics, it is the, but at the end of the day, if more people decide that, look, even with the APC legacy, a lot of people who follow me on Twitter know that there's nothing I spend more of my time doing than outlining what I think have been the achievements of the APC and of the Buhari administration.
You think, Tolu, that
yes,
there has been a tremendous impact of the Buhari government on the average, I mean, maybe direct or indirectly, impacting on the Nigerian youth, because our conversation
on many people. So and this is the point I'm making, that when people come to this thing, look at the people. So look at the people in the Northeast, for example. They know where they were in 2015. So when you come with an argument of insecurity, for example, I'm talking about the Northeast now, they know where they were in 2015. Airports were closed for 2 years. Schools were closed for 2 years. Nobody was doing Salah. Nobody was doing Christmas. Do you understand? So again, each individual person, look, each individual person comes to this thing and makes decisions. Like, look, so it's not just the opposition, of course, will make its own arguments. Oh, dollar was this amount at this time, and a bag of rice was this amount. Other people are coming to you and saying, well, okay, yes, there's nowhere in the world where food is selling for the same amount that is sold in 2015. So for many other people, they would discount that and say, well, oh, this government signed the Startup Act, which is like one of the most revolutionary contributions to youth empowerment that we've seen ever. So, people are a bit more sophisticated than we give them credit for. So assuming that somebody is just going to sit down and say, dollar was this amount in 2015, is now this amount, that may not shift elections as much as, because people are weighing multiple things. People are weighing multiple things. People are weighing multiple issues.
But Tolu, the question I was asking earlier is that let's assume that the young people have a block vote.
but they don't.
Okay, let's assume.
That's the point.
Let's assume
so
that.
It's misleading
Let's
assume that.
Let's assume young people are on the same WhatsApp group, and on the 25th, they've told themselves this is how they will vote. You think that will affect the chance of your party?
The biggest supporters of APC are young people. The biggest supporters of APC are young people. They are young people. I'm on WhatsApp groups with them. I'm in meetings with them. It is young people who believe that, look, APC is the party that they believe in. Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu is the candidate they believe in, and they will do everything in their power to deliver that election for him.
What?
They are mobilizing people. They are printing posters. They are compiling. Look, in my own little space, or in my own way, what I'm doing is, look, I'm saying that, look, in the last 8 years, these are the things that this government has achieved. Now, you can quibble with it, you can disagree, you can dismiss it, but it is my duty. I have a duty. I see it as my personal duty to put it out there.
So if someone like Debo or Mr. Macaroni says, look, in his own definition of leadership, that the rest of the guy, including your own candidate, does not cut it. That for him, selflessness, service, that is what he thinks Peter will be, that he is going to vote for. What can you say about Bola Tinubu? So,
I personally believe of the leading candidates, and by that I would mean Bola Tinubu, Atiku, and Peter Obi. Bola Tinubu, in my opinion, is the most competent and the one with the most demonstrated track record of achievement as a candidate. And I have no doubt. Look, I know what he did in Lagos State, and there's nothing, in my view, that Peter Obi did in Anambra that comes close to what Peter Obi did, to what Asiwaju did in Lagos, in terms of innovation. Now, this is innovation, public sector innovation that other states have copied. So even as much as people would attack Alpha, Beta, and all that, do you know how many states in Nigeria haven't seen what Alpha, Beta has done in terms of the finances of Lagos State, have adopted that same company? Now, judicial innovations in Lagos State, a lot of the Lagos State by far is way ahead of other states in Nigeria in terms of, the kind of reforms that we've seen in the judiciary in Lagos State. So public sector innovation, financial management, even agencies like, the idea of a BRT system, agencies like LASMA and LASA, many other states are copying these things. Even the idea of PDP people would like to talk about, Atiku and federalism. Nobody has advanced the cause of federalism more in Nigeria than Bola Tinubu. The cases that he took to court, challenging the federal government when he was governor. LCDAs, innovation at local government level, LCDAs, that was him. He pioneered that, which got him into trouble with the then government, the PDP government, and he went to court and he won.
So in terms of capacity to deal with the present situation of Nigeria now,
yes,
if you probably are not voting Tinubu, if Tinubu was not on the ballot, who would you have voted? Between Atiku, Peter Obi, or Kwankwaso?
No, so I'm not going to answer that question because it will be that is going to be the headline of this But I have no doubt. Look, let me, one important point to also make is that, look, all of the main candidates on this on the elections, none of them is new to politics. All of them have been in Nigerian politics. They have been, we have two-term governors. We have a two-term vice president. So nobody is an outsider. Peter Obi's people like to paint him as an outsider to politics, which is one of the falsehoods that I guess, they have managed to keep up. But nobody is new. So if nobody is new to politics, why are we not looking at what people have done in the past and placing it side by side?
Someone is asking you on Facebook, Tolu, that do you think Nigeria is safer now?
So maybe that's another question. I don't think that's a question that we can tackle in this.
Okay, all right.
This time that we have. But I just wanted to make the point that I think that we must look at what each of the candidates has done. Even in terms of a team, I asked on Twitter, where is Peter Obi's team? I got insulted. Because people will tell you that it's not what does a team have to do with this thing? But I've still not seen anybody who has told me. When you see Bola Ahmed Tinubu, you see his team. You see people like Babatunde Fashola. You see Femi Gbajabiamila. You see Nasir El-Rufai. You see Wale Edun. You see people. You see people who have proved themselves in public service. When you ask who is Peter Obi's team, it's silence. So for me, you can see how I can easily come to the conclusion that, look,